right, welcome back everyone for another deep dive. Today we're going to be focusing on something that's super important but often overlooked in the world of indoor cycling,
Oh, yeah.
and that is the warm up. You might be thinking a whole episode on just warming up,
Right.
but trust me, there's so much more to it than just, hopping on the bike and pedaling a little bit
For sure.
before the class starts. We'll be looking at an article it's called Indoor Cycling Warm Up: Science, Art, and Structure.
Oh.
And by the end of this, hopefully you'll understand not only why a good warm up is so crucial for a great workout,
Yeah.
but also how to actually how to really make the most of those first few minutes before the real ride begins.
It's interesting because a lot of people, I think, just view the warm up as something to get through,
Right.
and um, they don't really see it as like the foundation for a great workout.
Totally.
And this article really dives into the science behind it, and I think you'll find it pretty fascinating.
Okay, so let's unpack that science a little bit. The article talks about a lot of different physiological benefits of warming up, right? So
Mhm.
things like increased blood flow, enhanced mobility,
Yeah.
nervous system activation, getting that core temperature up, and also just mentally getting ready for the workout.
Yeah.
Like a a full body and mind tune up
Right.
before you hit the gas.
It is, and it's not just about checking boxes either. Like if you take, for example, blood flow.
Okay.
Increasing blood flow means that your muscles are getting oxygen more efficiently, right?
Right.
And that actually translates to having more endurance and power later on in the ride. So it's almost like you're pre-fueling the engine. So
Yeah.
you can really, you know, open it up on the road.
Right. It's like grabbing the pump.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I mean, I've definitely felt that difference between like just starting cold and
Right.
having that having a really good warm up. You just feel more ready to tackle those hills and sprints and everything.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then there's mobility.
Yeah.
Warming up really helps your joints to loosen up,
Mm-hmm.
and it increases your range of motion.
Okay.
And that can really be the difference between having a smooth, powerful pedal stroke
Right.
versus a clunky, injury-prone one.
Oh, for sure. So
Yeah.
it's not just about performance, it's also about
Yeah.
protecting yourself, I guess, right?
Exactly.
I remember one time I just went straight into a hard climb without warming up properly,
Oh, no.
and my hamstrings were tight for like days.
I think we've all learned that lesson the hard way at some point, for sure.
Yeah.
And the article really emphasizes the importance of a gradual ramp up.
Okay.
You don't want to shock your system by going like from 0 to 60 right out of the gate.
Right. That makes sense. Speaking of, setting the right pace and all that, the article also talks about kind of the art of creating the right like energy and mood for the warm up too.
Yes.
So how does that play into things?
It's really fascinating how much music and energy can actually influence a workout.
Yeah.
And instructors, they use these elements strategically.
Yeah.
And the time of day actually plays a really big role.
Okay.
If you think about it, like an early morning class is probably going to need a different vibe
Right.
than like an evening session.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be blasted with like high energy EDM at 6 a.m.
No, exactly.
So what kind of music do you think would be better for those early risers?
Well, the article suggests starting with something calming but still motivating.
Okay.
Something kind of eases people in and helps them wake up gradually. So
Mhm.
think like gentle ambient tracks,
Oh, okay.
maybe with a touch of nature sounds even. It's about creating that welcoming and positive atmosphere to start the day.
Yeah, I can definitely see that working. It's like a sonic sunrise or something.
Exactly. And then as the day goes on, you can kind of amp up the energy to match, people's natural rhythms.
Right.
So later the day when people have more energy naturally, you can bring in those more upbeat tracks.
Okay.
Something with like a driving beat that kind of builds excitement
Yeah.
and anticipation for the ride ahead.
I can practically feel the energy shift just thinking about it.
Right.
But it's not just about the music though, is it?
No, it's not.
I mean, the instructor's voice and like the cues that they're giving must play a role too, right?
Absolutely. Especially in the morning. Having a really calming and encouraging voice
Hmm.
can make all the difference. It's kind of like a gentle invitation to wake up the body and the mind.
Right.
Whereas later in the day, that same instructor might shift to a more energetic and motivating tone. and really like amping up the excitement and pushing riders to challenge themselves a little bit more.
Yeah, so it's almost like they're setting the stage for the entire experience, right?
Yeah.
With their voice and with the music.
Yeah, it's all connected.
Yeah, that's so cool. But wouldn't like too much hype early on be like overwhelming for some people?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Especially in those early morning classes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance, for sure.
Okay.
Too much hype too early can definitely backfire.
Right.
You want to, like, energize people, but you don't want to overwhelm them.
Right.
It's all about, reading the room and setting the right tone for the time of day and the type of class you're teaching.
Totally. Okay, so we've talked about the science of warming up,
All right.
and we've talked about kind of the art of creating the right atmosphere. So now let's get into like the specifics of,
Oh, okay.
what a well-structured warm-up actually looks like. Um, and the article mentions like a three-step guide, right?
Yes, it does. And it's definitely more than just hopping on the bike and pedaling around for a few minutes, right?
Right.
Each step actually has a purpose,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of builds on the previous one to really prepare you for the main event.
Yeah, okay. I
Okay.
like that.
Yeah,
So it's like a process, like a step by step.
it is.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's break down this three-step warm-up guide. I am all about having a roadmap, especially when it comes to working out.
Yeah.
So, what does step one look like in practice?
Well, the article, it suggests starting with a cadence of around like 80 to 90 RPM
Okay.
with light to moderate resistance.
Okay.
So it's about finding a pace that feels comfortable,
Right.
where you can ease into the workout,
Hmm.
increase circulation, and just gently kind of wake up those muscles.
So really the key here is to not go too hard too soon.
Exactly. You're not, trying to set any speed records just yet.
Right.
You're just priming the body,
Okay.
not pushing it to its limits.
So no all-out sprints in the first few minutes.
Not quite, no.
Got it. Okay, so what about step two?
So step 2 is where we start to progressively increase the load a little bit.
Okay.
So we're still keeping that steady cadence that we established in step 1,
Mm-hmm.
but we're going to add a bit more resistance.
Okay.
And the goal here is to really engage those slow twitch muscle fibers.
I've heard about slow twitch fibers, but could you remind me what they do again?
Yeah, so slow twitch muscle fibers are kind of like the endurance powerhouses of your body.
Okay.
They're really designed for sustained effort,
Okay.
and activating them early on can actually help you build stamina for, those longer climbs and efforts later in the ride.
Oh, I see. So it's like you're laying the groundwork for
Yeah.
those more challenging parts.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. So in terms of effort level, like where should we be at during this stage?
So during this stage, you should be aiming for an effort level of around, I would say, 60 to 70%.
Okay. So you should be breathing a bit heavier, but still feeling pretty comfortable overall.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, the article also mentions something called openers,
Yes.
which I have to admit sounds pretty intriguing.
ER.
So what are openers exactly, and how do they fit into this whole warm-up process?
So openers are kind of like the bridge
Okay.
between your warm-up and the main workout.
Okay.
Think of them as short bursts of high-intensity effort
Okay.
that are really designed to prime your neuromuscular system
Oh,
for what's to come in the main workout.
so almost like giving your body a sneak peek.
Exactly.
What's about to happen.
Exactly. And they're incredibly effective.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's almost like, imagine sharpening your sword before battle.
Okay.
That's essentially what openers are doing for your muscles and your nervous system.
Okay, that's a great analogy. I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together.
Yeah, but I'm still a little fuzzy on like what openers actually look like in a cycling class. Could you give me some examples?
Yeah, of course. A pretty classic opener would be like a 15-second sprint at high resistance,
Okay.
followed by a 30-second recovery.
Okay.
And you might do like, 2 to 4 bursts of that
Okay.
to really wake up those fast twitch muscle fibers and get your heart rate pumping.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that does sound pretty intense.
Yeah.
So would you do the same kind of opener like regardless of what type of class you're taking?
That's a great question. And actually, the beauty of openers is that you can tailor them to the specific type of class that you're doing.
Oh, interesting.
So, for example, if you're taking a class that involves a lot of like max effort sprints, high intensity intervals,
Right.
you might want to use openers that get you close to that level of intensity.
Okay.
So, maybe like 90 to 95% effort. for those short bursts.
I see. So you're basically mimicking
Yeah.
demands of the
Yeah.
workout.
Exactly. You're preparing your body for what's to come.
Okay, that's really smart. What about for like a less intense class though?
Yeah.
Like if I'm doing I don't know, more of an endurance ride or something like that,
Right.
would you still do those all-out sprints?
Probably not. For an endurance or lower intensity class,
Right.
the openers would be more moderate.
Okay.
So instead of sprints, you might do like steady pushes at a higher resistance
Okay.
or some quick accelerations just to kind of get your legs moving.
So there's a lot of different options.
There are. Yeah,
It sounds like there's a lot of room for customization.
absolutely. It's all about finding what works best for you
Yeah.
and the specific class that you're taking.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Now, this might be a little bit of a shift, but I'm wondering, like, how all of this fits into the bigger picture of the class, right?
Okay.
Because does the length of the class, for example, like
Yes.
affect how you would structure your warm-up?
Absolutely. That's a really key point. The length of the class will definitely impact how you structure your warm-up.
Okay.
A shorter class is going to require a more streamlined approach,
Okay.
whereas a longer class gives you more time to kind of build up gradually.
Okay, that makes sense. I've definitely been in classes where the warm-up felt really rushed,
Yeah.
and then other times where it felt like it just dragged on forever.
Right, and that can be a bit frustrating.
Yeah.
So, being mindful of the class lengths is really important.
Okay, so let's say, for example, I'm taking a 45-minute class.
Okay.
How should I adjust my warm-up?
So for a shorter class like that, 45 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to want to aim for a total warm-up time of about 5 to 6 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
So you might only have time for one song
Okay.
dedicated to that gradual intensity buildup.
Right.
And then you would move pretty quickly into your openers.
Okay, so you're basically getting to the, like, meat of the workout a little
Right.
bit quicker.
Right, but you still want to make sure you hit all the key elements of the warm-up.
Hmm.
You're just condensing them a little bit.
Gotcha. Okay, so what about those longer rides? Like if I'm doing a 60-minute class or even longer.
Yeah, then you have a little bit more freedom to take your time.
Okay.
So for a longer class, I would say aim for like 7 to 8 minutes of total warm-up time.
Okay.
And that gives you time to really ease into things.
Right.
Activate those muscles thoroughly and prepare your body for that longer effort.
Okay, so 2 songs for the gradual warm-up,
Yeah,
one for, like, just easy movement,
right.
and then the second one for those, for the progressive load increases,
Exactly.
and then you'd wrap it up with the openers.
Exactly.
Wow, it's amazing how much, like, strategy goes into
I know, right.
something as simple as warming up.
It's not just about hopping on the bike and pedaling.
Right.
It's really a dynamic and adaptable part of the class
Yeah.
that can have a huge impact on your entire workout.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So, I mean, it sounds like we've covered a lot of ground here.
Oh,
But, knowing all this information is really only half the battle, right?
Right.
The real magic happens when we actually apply it.
Exactly.
So what are some things that that listeners should keep in mind when they're warming up for their next class? Like, how can they take all of this and actually use it?
Well, the first thing I would say is awareness.
Okay.
Just pay attention to what your instructor is doing during the warm-up.
Mm-hmm.
Can you identify those 3 stages that we talked about?
Right.
The gradual intensity buildup,
Yeah.
the progressive load increase, and then the openers.
I like that. It's almost like becoming a student of the warm-up.
It is.
Right. Instead of just kind of zoning out.
Exactly. And, the more you pay attention, the more you'll start to pick up on little nuances.
Right.
Notice how the music changes.
Mm-mm.
Notice how the instructor's energy shifts
Yeah.
and how your body feels
Yeah.
as you move through those stages.
Yeah. And I bet if you start doing that, then you can actually fine-tune
Yeah.
your own warm-up routine even more
Absolutely.
based on what feels good for you.
Exactly.
I love that. And speaking of instructors, I love the idea of actually talking to them
Yes.
about their warm-up philosophy.
Yes, that's a great way to deepen your understanding.
Right.
Ask them why they choose certain songs.
Mm-hmm.
What are they looking to achieve with each stage of the warm-up?
Yeah.
How do they tailor it to different class types?
I bet you would get some amazing insights
Oh,
by
it's-
doing that.
You never know. You might even inspire them to try something new.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so to kind of wrap up our deep dive into the world of indoor cycling warm-ups, I think the biggest takeaway for me is that, like, those few minutes at the beginning of class
Yeah.
are just way more important than we often give them credit for.
For sure.
It's not just about, going through the motions.
Right.
It's really about setting the stage for a powerful, and enjoyable and hopefully injury-free ride.
Exactly.
And the best part is that it's totally within our control.
Yeah,
We have the power to actually make the most of those warm-up minutes
we do.
and really transform our whole cycling experience.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's so cool. Well, that's it for this deep dive.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those pedals turning.
Yeah, it's amazing how, like, such a short amount of time can have such a huge impact on your whole ride.
Right.
Yeah,
It's really powerful. But, as you said, knowledge is only powerful if you actually do something with it.
right.
So how can people listening take all of this information about warming up and actually, use it to improve their cycling?
Well, I would say the most important thing is just awareness.
Okay.
Like, really start to pay attention to what your instructor's doing during the warm-up.
Okay.
Like, can you actually identify those 3 stages that we talked about? The gradual intensity buildup,
Yeah.
the progressive load increase, and then those openers.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like you become a student of the warm-up
Right.
instead of just zoning out.
Exactly. And I think the more you pay attention to those things, the more you'll start to pick up on those little nuances, like how the
Yeah.
music changes,
Yeah.
how the instructor's energy kind of shifts,
Mm-hmm.
and really like how your body is feeling as you move through those different stages.
Yeah. And I bet if you start doing that, you could probably really fine-tune
For sure.
your own warm-up routine.
Absolutely.
Figure out what works best for you.
Yeah, experiment a little,
Yeah.
try different types of openers,
Mm-hmm.
see what really gets you going, see what feels best for you.
I love that. And speaking of instructors,
Yeah.
I think it'd be so cool to actually talk to them
Yes.
about their warm-up philosophy,
Yes, I love that.
you know?
It's such a great way to really deepen your understanding.
Yeah, ask them why they chose those particular songs
That's
or
right.
what are they hoping to achieve with each stage of the warm-up,
Hmm.
how they tailor it to the different types of classes and all that.
Yeah, ask those questions.
Yeah, I bet you would get such incredible insights
Oh, for sure.
from having that conversation.
And who knows, you might even inspire them
Oh, that's true.
to try something new.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, well, I think to kind of sum up our deep dive into the world of indoor cycling warm-ups,
Yeah.
I think the biggest takeaway for me is just realizing how important those few minutes at the beginning of class really are.
Absolutely.
They're so much more crucial
Yeah,
than we often give them credit for.
they really are.
It's not just about going through the motions, You're really setting the stage for the whole experience, exactly, for a really powerful and enjoyable ride.
Yeah.
And hopefully one that's injury-free too. And the best part is that it's something that we have control over.
Yes, we do.
We can really take ownership of those warm-up minutes and make them work for us.
For sure.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, that's it for this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those pedals turning.